The moment before the bullet tore through the air, I thought yesterday was the worst day of my life. Standing in front of 200 people, claiming a complete stranger as my wife, watching my carefully constructed future collapse like a house built on sand. I was wrong. The worst day was today, the day someone decided we both needed to die for that lie. I'm lying in Wyoming mud, blood mixing with rainwater, a woman I barely know pressed against my chest. Her heart hammers so hard I can feel each beat through my shirt. 20 feet away, our overturned carriage bleeds whiskey from a shattered barrel. The horses have bolted. Steam rises from their hoof prints in the cold October air. Above us, somewhere in the cottonwood trees lining the road back to Red Canyon Ranch, a gunman reloads. I hear the metallic click of a Winchester being chambered. He's taking his time now, making sure. Nora's breath comes in short gasps against my neck. Her fingers grip my jacket so tight I feel her nails through the leather. "Don't move," I whisper. He's aiming again. Who wants us dead? It's a reasonable question. One I don't have an answer to. Not yet. The second shot explodes through the afternoon quiet. It punches through the carriage door where Nora's head was seconds before I pulled her down. Splinters of wood rain over us like shrapnel from some distant war finally catching up. I should be thinking about survival, about getting us to cover. Instead, my mind keeps circling back to one thought. I don't even know this woman's full name. I know she's called Nora Hayes. I know she's a widow. I know that 24 hours ago she walked into my life and somehow became the only thing standing between me and complete ruin. But I don't know why someone wants her dead badly enough to kill me alongside her. The hoofbeats start then. Fast and getting farther, the shooter's running. Smart man. In Wyoming Territory, you don't hang around after attempted murder. Too many witnesses, too many questions, too much rope waiting at the end. I wait 30 seconds more before lifting my head. The road stretches empty in both directions. Nothing but prairie grass, bending in the wind, and those cottonwoods standing silent witness to what almost happened here. He's gone, I tell Nora. She doesn't move. I realize she's shaking, not from cold, from the kind of fear that lives in your bones after someone tries to put a bullet in your brain. I ease off her slowly, checking for blood. Her dress is covered in mud, but I don't see any red. My left shoulder burns where I hit the ground, but the pain is distant, manageable. Adrenaline does that, makes you invincible for a few minutes before the reality sets in. "Are you hurt?" I ask. She shakes her head, then stops, looks at me with those gray eyes that seem to see straight through every lie I've ever told. "This is my fault," she says. "They're after me." "Who?" "I don't know, but Cole, I need to tell you something, before this goes any further, before someone else gets hurt because of me." That's when I hear it. Horses, multiple riders coming fast from the direction of my ranch. I recognize my brother Jack's voice before I see him, calling my name across the prairie like he thinks he's going to find me dead. 4 men crest the rise. Jack's in front, riding that paint horse of his like the devil himself is giving chase. Behind him, 3 of my ranch hands spread out in a line, rifles already drawn. "Cole!" Jack pulls up hard, the paint rearing. "We heard shots. Someone took aim at us from the trees." I point east where the shooter disappeared. 3 rounds. Winchester, sounded like 44-40. One of my men, a grizzled cowboy named Dutch, spits tobacco into the dirt. That's Silas Crane's gun. I'd know that piece anywhere. Only man in Wyoming who uses that particular ammunition. Silas Crane, Theodore Ainsworth's lawyer. The man who's been investigating my marriage for the past week, trying to prove it's a fraud, which it is. But that's beside the point. Jack dismounts, helps Nora to her feet with the kind of gentleness that makes me notice how young my brother still is. 28 years old, and he still believes most people are basically good. I used to think that way too before the world taught me different. "You're bleeding," Jack says to me. I look down. My shirt's torn at the shoulder, blood seeping through. Must have caught a splinter from the second shot. Or maybe I landed on something sharp when the carriage flipped. Hard to tell. "It's nothing." Nothing gets you dead same as something. Jack's already pulling a bandana from his pocket. Dutch, ride back to town. Find Sheriff Holland. Tell him Crane just tried to murder Cole and Mrs. Driscoll. Mrs. Driscoll. The name still sounds foreign, like a costume I put on yesterday and can't quite figure out how to wear. Dutch nods and turns his horse. I watch him disappear toward Cheyenne, carrying news that's going to spread through Wyoming Territory faster than wildfire in August. We should get back to the ranch, Jack says. Get that shoulder looked at proper. But I'm watching Nora. She's staring at the bullet hole in the carriage door, the one that would have killed her if I hadn't pulled her down. Her face has gone pale. Not the pale of fear, the pale of recognition. You knew this would happen, I say quietly. Not a question. She meets my eyes. Not this exactly, but I knew someone would try, eventually. Who? I told you my husband died in a railroad accident 2 years ago. 17 people killed when a section of track exploded. Union Pacific called it poor construction, blamed the contractors, paid out settlements to keep the families quiet. Union Pacific, Ainsworth's railroad. Yes, but that's not the whole story. She takes a breath, the kind of breath people take before jumping off cliffs. Daniel, my husband, was an engineer. He inspected track. The night before he died, he found something wrong with the new construction on Sector 7. Cracks in the rails, substandard materials. He took photographs, wrote a report, planned to file it the next morning. The wind picks up, carrying the smell of approaching winter. I wait. I learned a long time ago that silence is how you get people to tell you truths they're afraid of. The explosion happened at dawn, right where Daniel had flagged the problems. Union Pacific investigators said he must have been wrong about the defects, that the blast was caused by trapped methane from an old mine shaft underneath. But you don't believe that. I believe my husband knew railroad construction better than anyone in Colorado. I believe someone didn't want his report filed, and I believe whoever killed those 17 people has enough power to make evidence disappear. Jack's been listening. Now he speaks up. You think Ainsworth ordered the hit? I think someone did. Ainsworth's name is on the company, but whether he gave the order himself or whether someone under him decided to solve a problem before it reached his desk, I don't know. Not yet. I'm starting to understand. The pieces clicking together like a puzzle I didn't know I was solving. You came to Wyoming looking for proof. I came to Wyoming because I found out Ainsworth was planning to expand the railroad through this territory. Same company, same pattern. And I thought if I could get close enough to his operation, I might find evidence linking back to what happened in Colorado. And then I came along. She nods. You announced your engagement to Margaret Ainsworth. I saw it in the newspaper. I realized if I could get inside your world, if I could observe how Ainsworth does business, I might find what I'm looking for. Jack whistles low. So you planned the whole thing? Showing up at the church? Getting grabbed by that drunk senator's son? Banking on Cole being just stupid enough to claim you as his wife? No. Nora's voice is firm. I went to the church hoping to speak with Cole privately, maybe offer my services as a seamstress or housekeeper. Get a position that would put me near the Ainsworth family. But when that man grabbed me, when Cole stepped in, when he said those words, I didn't plan that. I just saw an opportunity and took it. I should be angry, should feel manipulated, used, and maybe I am, somewhere under the layers of exhaustion and adrenaline. But mostly I'm thinking about how she answered my questions in the lawyer's office last week, how she signed that contract without hesitation, how she's been playing this role perfectly, like someone who understands exactly what's at stake. You're good at lying, I say. I've had 2 years to practice. The sun's getting lower, temperature's dropping. We need to move before dark, before whoever sent Crane decides to finish the job. We head back to the ranch, I tell everyone. Nora rides with me. Jack, you and the boys scout ahead. Anyone on the road who doesn't belong, you let me know. Jack nods, remounts. The other 2 ranch hands fall in behind him. They know better than to question orders when I use that tone. I help Nora onto my horse. She settles into the saddle and I swing up behind her, my arm coming around her waist to grip the reins. This close, I can smell her hair, something like lavender and wood smoke. This close, I can feel how tightly she's holding herself together, how much effort it takes not to fall apart. We start riding. The ranch is 40 minutes away. 40 minutes of prairie and sky and the kind of silence that makes you think too much. "Cole," she says after a while, "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For lying, for using you, for putting you in danger." I think about that, about how she stood in my lawyer's office and agreed to a fake marriage, about how she spent the past week playing the role of my wife so well that even my mother is starting to believe it, about how she was willing to risk everything for justice that might not even exist. "You know what the funny thing is?" I say. "If you'd told me the truth from the start, I probably wouldn't have helped you. I would have thought you were crazy, or desperate, or both. But by lying, by making yourself useful to me, you made yourself impossible to refuse. And now? Now someone just tried to kill us both, which means whatever game we've been playing, it just got real." We ride in silence for a while. The ranch comes into view as the sun touches the horizon. Red Canyon Ranch, named for the rust-colored gorge that cuts through the eastern section of my land. 50,000 acres of prairie and scrubland, and the only consistent water source for 30 miles in any direction. My father built this place from nothing. Died 6 months ago thinking he'd secured its future. He didn't know about the $30,000 in bank debt. Didn't know that Judge Mercer, his oldest friend, had co-signed loans that were coming due with interest rates that would choke a railroad baron. Didn't know his son would have to choose between marrying Theodore Ainsworth's daughter or losing everything. The ranch house sits at the base of the canyon, a 2-story structure made of local stone and timber my father cut himself. Smoke rises from the chimney. Someone's got dinner started. Normal life continuing while mine spirals into chaos. "What happens now?" Nora asks as we approach. "Now we figure out who wants you dead and why they're willing to kill me to get to you. It has to be connected to Ainsworth, to the railroad. Maybe, but Crane works for Ainsworth. If Ainsworth wanted us dead, why use his own lawyer? Why make it so easy to trace back?" She doesn't have an answer for that. Neither do I. We reach the house. My mother's waiting on the porch. Virginia Driscoll, 58 years old, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes the color of Wyoming ice. She takes one look at my torn shirt and Nora's mud-covered dress, and her expression doesn't change at all. "Inside," she says. "Both of you. Jack already told me what happened." The house is warm. The fire's been built up. Dinner's cooking, something that smells like beef stew and fresh bread. Home, safety, illusions both. Mother directs Nora upstairs to clean up. Then she turns to me. "Your father's study. Now." I follow her to the back of the house. The study still smells like him. Leather and tobacco and old paper. His desk sits exactly as he left it, covered in ranch ledgers and veterinary journals and a half-finished letter to a cattle buyer in Omaha. Mother closes the door, locks it, turns to face me with an expression I haven't seen since I was 10 years old, and she caught me stealing coins from the church collection plate. "Tell me everything." So I do, start to finish. The wedding that wasn't, the contract with Nora, the investigation, Crane's attempt on our lives, Nora's real reason for being here. Mother listens without interrupting. When I finish, she walks to the window, looks out at the canyon turning dark in the fading light. "Do you know why your father married me?" she asks. "Because he loved you." Before that. "Do you know why he asked?" I don't. It's not something we ever talked about. Some things you just accept as foundational truth. The sky is blue, water flows downhill. My parents loved each other. "I was engaged to another man first," Mother says. "Marcus Ainsworth, Theodore's father." The world tilts slightly. I sit down before my legs can make the decision for me. "You were engaged to an Ainsworth. For 6 months. Marcus was charming, wealthy, everything a young woman could want. but I didn't love him. I loved your father. Samuel was a ranch hand then, working for my father. No money, no prospects, just a man who looked at me like I was the only real thing in a world full of illusions. She turns from the window. I broke the engagement, married your father instead. Marcus never forgave me. He spent the next 30 years building an empire, making sure everyone knew he was more successful than Samuel Driscoll could ever be. And when he died 10 years ago, he left everything to Theodore with one instruction: finish what I started. The railroad. The railroad through your land, through our land. It was never about business, Cole. It was about revenge, about proving that the Ainsworths always win in the end. I'm trying to process this, trying to understand how my entire life has been shaped by a decision my mother made before I was born. So, the engagement to Margaret, the contract that would have given Ainsworth control of the ranch, all of it was a trap, yes. Whether you married Margaret or defaulted on the debt, Ainsworth would end up with this land. He probably planned it years ago, waited for your father to die, then moved. And Mercer, father's best friend? Mother's face hardens. Thomas Mercer has been in Ainsworth's pocket since before you were born. Those loans he co-signed, I'd bet my life the interest rates were designed to be unpayable. Everything carefully orchestrated to look legitimate while destroying us from within. The anger comes then, hot and sharp. 33 years of my life, and I've been playing a game where everyone else knew the rules except me. Why didn't you tell me? Because your father made me promise not to. He thought if you didn't know about the history, you'd make your own choices, not be bound by old grudges and ancient mistakes. She sits down across from me. He was wrong. I see that now. Footsteps overhead. Nora moving around in one of the guest rooms, getting cleaned up, probably wondering if she should run, if staying here means signing her own death warrant. What do we do? I ask. You marry her, for real this time. I stare at my mother. What? The contracts you signed with my lawyer, Henry Fletcher, they're good enough to fool an investigation, but they won't hold up in court if Ainsworth pushes, not against his resources. But if you actually marry Nora, if you make it legal in front of witnesses who can't be bought, then the engagement contract to Margaret becomes void. No question, no lawsuit. Mother, I barely know her. You know she's willing to risk her life for justice. You know she's smart enough to play this game, and you know that someone just tried to kill both of you, which means you're in this together whether you like it or not. She's right. I hate that she's right. There's something else, Mother continues. If Nora's husband really did die because of Union Pacific, if there's evidence that Ainsworth or someone in his company ordered those deaths, that changes everything. That's not a civil matter anymore. That's murder. And if you can prove it, Ainsworth goes to prison. The railroad expansion stops. The ranch is safe. Exactly. A knock at the door. Jack's voice. Cole, Sheriff Holland's here. I open the door. Sheriff Tom Holland stands in the hallway, hat in hand. He's a good man, honest, one of the few in Wyoming Territory who can't be bought. Father trusted him. That's enough for me. Heard you had some trouble, Holland says. Someone tried to kill us. Crane, we think. Dutch said he recognized the ammunition. Holland nods. Dutch told me. I sent 2 deputies to Crane's office and residence. He's gone. Cleared out. Horse missing from the stable. Left town maybe 2 hours ago. So he's running. Or being silenced. Holland pulls out a notebook. Mind if I ask Mrs. Driscoll some questions? Need to understand why someone wants her dead. I look at Mother. She nods. I'll get her, I say. Upstairs, I find Nora standing by the window in the guest room. She's changed into a clean dress, one of Mother's probably. Her hair is still damp from washing. She looks younger somehow. More vulnerable, less like the woman who stood in a lawyer's office and agreed to become my fake wife without blinking. Sheriff's downstairs, wants to talk to you. About what happened today. About everything. About why you're really here. About your husband. She turns from the window. Will he believe me? Holland's one of the good ones. If you tell him the truth, he'll listen. We go downstairs together. Holland's in the front room, warming his hands by the fire. Jack's there, too, and Mother. The whole family gathered to hear Nora's story. She tells it better than she told it to me. More detail, more emotion. She talks about Daniel Hayes, the engineer who loved his job and believed in doing things right. About the photographs he took showing cracks in the rails. About the report he planned to file. About the explosion at dawn that killed him and 16 others. About 2 years of investigating on her own, following paper trails, talking to survivors, trying to find evidence that Union Pacific knew about the defects and ordered Daniel silenced before he could report them. About hitting dead end after dead end until she saw my engagement announcement and realized Ainsworth was coming to Wyoming. Realized this might be her last chance to find proof. Holland listens, takes notes, asks questions that show he's actually thinking, not just going through motions. "And you think today's attack is connected to your investigation?" he asks. "It has to be. I haven't been subtle. I wrote to the Railway Safety Commission 3 weeks ago asking them to reopen the inquiry. I wrote to the governor of Colorado. I even wrote to the Denver Post suggesting they investigate." So if someone was watching for exactly that kind of inquiry, they'd know you're the one making noise. "Yes." Holland closes his notebook. "Mrs. Driscoll, I'm going to be honest with you. What you're describing, corporate murder and cover-up, that's beyond my jurisdiction. That's federal. But attempted murder here in Wyoming? That I can handle. And if Crane's the shooter, if we can prove Ainsworth ordered it, that gives us leverage." "To do what?" I ask. "To make him tell us everything. About Colorado, about the railroad, about who knew what and when." Holland stands. "I'm putting a protection detail on this ranch. 2 deputies, round the clock. Nobody gets in or out without me knowing about it." After Holland leaves, Mother goes to check on dinner. Jack follows her, probably hungry. That leaves me and Nora alone in the front room. "Thank you," she says, "for not throwing me out. Where would you go?" "I don't know. Denver, San Francisco, somewhere far enough away that Ainsworth can't reach. Running won't stop him. If he wants you dead, he'll find you eventually." "Then what do we do?" I think about Mother's suggestion. About actually marrying Nora, making this fake arrangement into something real and legal and binding. It's insane. It's the last thing I should be considering. But it's also the only move that makes sense. We double down, I say. We make them think we're exactly what we've been pretending to be, a couple in love, a marriage that can't be broken. And while they're focused on that, we find the evidence you need. Together. "Cole, you don't have to. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because Ainsworth and Mercer have been playing me for a fool my entire life. Because they tried to trap me in a marriage that would have stolen everything my father built. Because they just tried to kill me. And I don't take kindly to any of those things." She studies my face, looking for cracks, for lies, for the same kind of manipulation she's been practicing. "What changed?" she asks. 24 hours ago, this was just a business arrangement. Now you're talking about actually fighting alongside me. 24 hours ago, nobody was shooting at us." It's not the whole truth. The whole truth is more complicated. Has to do with the way she looked when she told me about her husband, the way she's been carrying this weight alone for 2 years, the way she didn't hesitate to throw herself into danger today, into my world, into a fight that isn't really hers anymore, but I don't say any of that. Some truths you keep buried until you understand them yourself. Dinner is quiet. Mother's beef stew, thick with vegetables from the garden. Fresh bread that Jack tears into like he hasn't eaten in days. Normal family dinner, except for the 2 deputies sitting on the porch with rifles and the knowledge that someone out there wants us dead. After we eat, Nora excuses herself, says she's tired. Mother shows her upstairs to the same guest room, the one we've been pretending she shares with me even though I've been sleeping in my father's study. Jack helps me clean up. We work in silence until the dishes are done and the kitchen's dark except for the banked coals in the stove. "You're actually going to do this, aren't you?" he says. "Marry her for real?" "Probably. Even though you just met her, even though she lied to you, even though someone's trying to kill her." "Because of all that, maybe?" Jack shakes his head. You always did have a talent for making the worst possible decision look reasonable. It's a gift. Just promise me something. He puts a hand on my shoulder, the one that's not injured. Promise me you know what you're feeling, whether it's real or just adrenaline and circumstance. How am I supposed to know that? That's my point, you're not. So maybe slow down before you do something permanent. He's right. But slowing down isn't an option when someone's already taken shots at you, when the game is already in motion and the only choice is play or fold. I go upstairs. The house is quiet. Mother's in her room. Jack's retired to his. The guest room where Nora's staying shows a line of light under the door. I should go to the study, should sleep, should give my body time to process being shot at and my mind time to sort through everything I learned today. Instead, I knock on her door. Come in. She's sitting by the window again. Seems to be her favorite spot, looking out at the canyon where moonlight turns everything silver and black. Can't sleep? I ask. Too many thoughts. I know the feeling. I sit in the chair across from her. We don't talk for a while, just sit there in the lamplight while the house settles around us. My father died in this room, I say eventually. Heart attack. Fell off his horse checking cattle, and by the time we got him back here, it was too late. He died in that bed where you're probably supposed to be sleeping. Cole, I didn't know. It's fine. He would have liked that someone's using it, would have hated for it to sit empty. I look around the room. Father's book's still on the shelf, his reading glasses on the nightstand. Mother hasn't changed anything. He was a good man, honest, fair, believed people were basically decent if you gave them the chance to be. You don't believe that. I used to. Before I learned how the world really works. Nora stands, walks to where I'm sitting, kneels down so we're eye level. I meant what I said earlier. I'm sorry for lying, for dragging you into my fight, for getting you shot at. Stop apologizing. You gave me something more valuable than truth. You gave me a way out, from Ainsworth, from Mercer, from a life I didn't want. The fact that it came wrapped in lies doesn't change that. And now we figure out how to survive long enough to make this mean something. She's close enough that I can see the silver flecks in her gray eyes. Close enough that when she reaches out and touches the bandage on my shoulder, I feel it all the way through. Does it hurt? Everything hurts. That's just life. She smiles. First real smile I've seen from her. You're kind of grim for a cowboy, and you're kind of reckless for a widow. Maybe that's why this works. The moment hangs there, suspended. One of us could break it, could step back and return to safe ground where everything's still just business and contract and mutual benefit. But neither of us moves. Cole, she says quietly, if we're really going to do this, if we're going to make people believe it, I need to know something. What? Can you separate what's real from what's performance? Can you stand next to me in a church and say words that are supposed to mean forever, and then walk away when this is over? Because I don't know if I can. It's the most honest thing she's said since I met her. Raw and unguarded, and exactly the question I've been avoiding asking myself. I don't know, I admit. I've never been good at lying, not to others and especially not to myself. So if we do this, if we actually get married, I can't promise it stays fake. Can't promise I won't start believing in it. That's what I'm afraid of. Why? Because I already am. The silence that follows is different, charged, full of things neither of us knows how to say. Then she leans forward and kisses me. It's not soft, not tentative. It's the kiss of someone who's been holding back for too long, who's tired of pretending, who's decided that if the world's going to end anyway, she might as well know what this feels like. I kiss her back. My hand finds her waist, pulls her closer. She tastes like the peppermint tea Mother makes, and something else, something that might just be Nora herself. When we break apart, we're both breathing hard. Rule number 1, I say, no real emotions. I know. We just broke it. I know. She stands, puts distance between us, turns back to the window where the canyon waits in silver silence. We should sleep, she says. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. Tomorrow's already here. It's past midnight. Then we should definitely sleep. I stand to leave, get halfway to the door before I turn back. Nora? Yes? For what it's worth, I'm glad you showed up at that church. Glad you gave me an excuse to burn my life down. It needed burning anyway. Cole? Yes? I'm terrified I'm going to get you killed. Then we'll be terrified together. I leave her there. Go to the study. Don't sleep. Just sit in Father's chair and watch the night slowly turn to dawn while my mind runs through everything that's happened in the last 24 hours. Somewhere out there, Silas Crane is running, or dead, or planning his next move. Somewhere out there, Theodore Ainsworth is deciding how to handle the fact that his carefully laid trap just blew up in his face. And somewhere out there, the truth about what happened to Daniel Hayes and 16 other people is waiting to be found, if we can stay alive long enough to find it. The sun rises red over the canyon, blood sky, cowboys call it, warning of storms to come. I watch it paint the rocks crimson and think about how yesterday I was a man with no choices. Today I'm a man with too many, and the only one that makes sense is the one that terrifies me most. Marrying a woman I barely know, fighting enemies I can't see, betting everything on a lie that's starting to feel more real than any truth I've ever lived. Father would have called it foolish, reckless, the kind of decision young men make before they've learned better. But Father's dead, and I'm still here. And I've spent 33 years playing it safe, doing what's expected, trying to be the man everyone else needed me to be. Maybe it's time to be the man I actually am, even if I don't fully know who that is yet, even if finding out might kill me. Downstairs, I hear Mother moving around, smell coffee brewing, life continuing despite everything. That's the thing about ranches. Cattle need feeding. Horses need tending. Work doesn't stop just because your world's falling apart. I go down. Mother's in the kitchen, already dressed. She takes one look at me and pours a second cup of coffee without asking. You didn't sleep? Neither did you. She sits across from me. We drink in silence. Outside, Jack's already up, heading to the barn. The deputies are changing shifts. Normal morning, except for everything. I've been thinking about what you said last night, Mother says, about actually marrying Nora. And I think you should wait, not long, but a few days. Make sure you're not just reacting to being shot at. Make sure this is really what you want. What I want stopped mattering when Crane pulled that trigger. Now it's about what we need to survive. Cole, you're my son. Your survival matters, but so does your happiness. And I've watched you for 33 years trying to do the right thing, be the responsible one, carry your father's legacy. Maybe it's time you did something just for yourself. This is for myself. Ainsworth and Mercer have been playing me since before I was born. Everything I thought I knew about Father, about this ranch, about my own life. It was all built on lies they constructed. Well, now I'm building my own lie, and I'm going to use it to tear theirs apart. Mother reaches across the table, takes my hand. Then do it right. Give yourself a chance to actually know her, because once you say those vows, once you make it legal and real, there's no going back, not without destroying both of you. She's right, but time is a luxury we don't have. The sound of horses approaching, multiple riders. I grab my rifle from beside the door, move to the window, 3 men on horseback. Leading them is someone I never expected to see at my ranch, Theodore Ainsworth himself. He dismounts slow, hands clearly visible, no weapons drawn. Behind him, 2 men I recognize as railroad security. They stay mounted, waiting. I step onto the porch, rifle lowered, but ready. Ainsworth, you've got 1 minute to explain why you're on my land before I exercise my right to defend it. I came to talk, Driscoll. No lawyers, no contracts, just 2 men trying to stop a situation from getting worse. Someone tried to kill me yesterday. Your lawyer. So forgive me if I'm not in a talking mood. Crane wasn't acting on my orders. Then whose? Ainsworth looks old in the morning light. Tired, like a man who's carried too much weight for too long and finally feels it. That's what I'm here to find out. I let Ainsworth into my house. It goes against every instinct I have, every lesson my father taught me about keeping enemies at arm's length. But sometimes you learn more by watching a man in your own space than you ever could across a negotiating table. Mother appears in the hallway. Her face goes white when she sees him, not the pale of shock. The pale of someone seeing a ghost they thought they'd buried decades ago. "Theodore," she says. "Eleanor." He removes his hat. "You look well. You look old." The words hang there, sharp, precise. Mother never was one for pleasantries. Ainsworth's jaw tightens, but he doesn't respond, just follows me into Father's study. The same room where he probably sat 100 times, drinking whiskey with the man who stole his father's intended bride, talking cattle prices and weather while hiding the slow poison of revenge. I pour coffee, don't offer whiskey, too early, and I want him clear-headed for whatever he's about to say. "Talk," I tell him. He sits in the chair across from Father's desk, looks around the room like he's cataloging memories. "Your father was a good man." "Don't." My voice comes out harder than intended. "Don't sit in his chair's shadow and pretend you respected him while you were planning to destroy everything he built." I never wanted to destroy Samuel. I wanted to destroy the choice Eleanor made. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, they look exactly the same. Mother appears in the doorway. Nora's with her, both women watching Ainsworth like he's a rattlesnake that might strike. Ainsworth sees Nora and something flickers across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or calculation. "Mrs. Driscoll," he says. "Or should I say, Mrs. Hayes. I know who you are, know what happened to your husband, and I'm sorry." Nora doesn't move. Sorry he's dead, or sorry you couldn't cover it up better? Sorry that Daniel Hayes was a good man who found something he wasn't supposed to find, and sorry that the people who should have protected him failed. People like you. Yes, people like me. The admission shocks everyone. Even Mother, who I've never seen surprised by anything. Ainsworth sets his coffee down, pulls a leather folder from his coat, opens it on the desk between us. 3 weeks ago, your wife, Nora, wrote to the Railway Safety Commission asking them to reopen the investigation into the 1882 explosion on Union Pacific's Colorado line. 2 weeks ago, she wrote to the governor. 1 week ago, she contacted the Denver Post. How do you know that? Because I have people who watch for exactly those kinds of inquiries, who alert me when someone starts asking questions about accidents that were supposed to stay buried. "So you sent Crane to kill her?" "No." Ainsworth's voice is sharp, certain. "I sent Crane to investigate her, to find out what she knew and whether she had any real evidence. Murder was never part of the instruction." He pulls papers from the folder, bank statements, transaction records. 2 days before Crane shot at you, he received $5,000, deposited into an account at Mountain Trust Bank. The transaction was routed through a shell company based in Denver, untraceable, or at least untraceable to anyone without the right connections. And you have those connections. I spent 30 years building a railroad empire. You don't do that without learning how money moves in the dark. He slides the papers across to me. I traced the payment back to its source. It came from a trust controlled by Mountain Trust's board of directors, and the chairman of that board is Judge Thomas Mercer. The name hits like a fist. Mercer, Father's best friend, the man who held me when I was baptized, who taught me to shoot, who co-signed the loans that were supposed to save this ranch. You're lying. I wish I was. Ainsworth pulls out more documents. Mercer also owns 40% of Rocky Mountain Mining Company, the same mining company that needed railroad access to the silver deposits they found in 1882. The same company that hired substandard contractors to save money. The same company whose representatives paid Daniel Hayes' supervisor to ignore his safety report. Nora makes a sound, small, broken, the sound of a world collapsing. Daniel's supervisor said he never received any report, said Daniel must have made a mistake in his assessment. Daniel's supervisor, Frank Morrison, deposited $1,500 the week after the explosion, retired 6 months later to a ranch in Montana, paid cash, no mortgage, no debt. A man who made $30 a month suddenly living like he struck gold. I'm trying to process this, trying to understand how deep the rot goes. So Mercer orchestrated the whole thing, paid off Morrison to ignore Daniel's report, caused the explosion that killed 17 people, blamed Union Pacific, and profited when the mining company went bankrupt and he bought it for pennies on the dollar. Exactly. But why frame your company? Why make Union Pacific the villain? Ainsworth's face hardens. Because 2 years before the explosion, I refused to pay Mercer's demanded bribe to expedite permits for a different railroad expansion. I humiliated him in front of the territorial governor, told everyone he was a corrupt judge who should be removed from the bench. So he destroyed your reputation while stealing a silver mine. 2 birds, 1 explosion. 17 dead workers were just acceptable losses in his accounting. Mother speaks from the doorway. Why are you telling us this, Theodore? What do you want? Ainsworth stands, walks to the window, looks out at the canyon where morning light turns everything gold. I want what you want, Eleanor. I want Mercer to pay for what he's done, to you, to Samuel, to Cole, to Daniel Hayes and 16 others whose names nobody remembers. And what about what you've done? I ask. The engagement contract designed to steal my ranch, the threats, the investigation into my marriage. You're not innocent in this. No, I'm not. He turns back to face us. My father, Marcus, loved your mother. When she chose Samuel instead, it broke something in him. He spent his whole life building an empire to prove she made the wrong choice. When he died, he left me a letter. 1 instruction. Finish what he started. Protect Samuel's family from Mercer. The room goes silent. Protect us? Mother's voice is ice. You tried to force Cole into a marriage that would have given you control of this ranch. I tried to force Cole into a marriage that would have put this ranch under Union Pacific's protection. The contract you're referring to, the one with clauses about water rights and land management, those weren't to steal from you. They were to make it legally impossible for Mercer to foreclose when the loans came due. He pulls out another document. The marriage contract points to the fine print. Clause 17, subsection 3. If Union Pacific assumes management authority, all existing debts secured against the property are assumed by the company and must be satisfied before any claim against the land can proceed. Meaning, if Cole married Margaret, Mercer's loans would have been paid in full by me, and this ranch would have been safe. I read the clause, read it again. He's right, the language is there. Hidden in legal terminology designed to look predatory, but actually providing protection. You could have just told me this. Would you have believed me, the son of the man your mother rejected? Or would you have thought I was trying to trick you like everyone assumed I was? Fair point. So the investigation, Nora says quietly. The detective you hired to prove our marriage was fake. That was to help us? That was to protect you. I knew if you stayed married to Cole, if you were legally his wife, Mercer couldn't touch you. He'd have to go through Cole first, through this ranch, through me, because of the railroad expansion agreements we'd already signed. You became untouchable the moment Cole claimed you, until Crane tried to kill us, until Mercer bought Crane. Ainsworth's voice turns bitter. I hired Crane to investigate and protect. I didn't know Mercer had already gotten to him, didn't know my own lawyer was working for the enemy. Jack appears in the doorway. Cole, Sheriff Holland's back. Says he needs to talk to everyone. Now. We move to the front room. Hollins is standing by the fireplace, hat turning in his hands. He looks like a man delivering news he doesn't want to deliver. Found Crane, he says, or what's left of him. Body was in a ravine about 20 miles east. Shot once in the back of the head. Execution style. Horse was grazing nearby. When? I ask. Coroner says sometime yesterday evening, after he took shots at you, but before he could have made it very far. Nora sits down hard. Someone killed him to keep him quiet. That's my thinking. And there's more. Holland pulls out a notebook. We searched his office, found correspondence between Crane and someone using the name J. Monroe. Letters going back 6 months, discussing you, Mrs. Driscoll, discussing your investigation, discussing ways to discredit you or, if necessary, eliminate you. J. Monroe is one of Mercer's aliases, Ainsworth says. He's used it for years when conducting business he doesn't want traced back to him. Holland nods. That matches what I found. Also found this. He hands me a telegram, dated 3 days ago. Situation escalating. Stop. Driscoll, marriage complicates matters. Stop. Recommend immediate action. Stop. Both targets, stop. Confirm when complete, stop. J. Monroe, both targets. Me and Nora. Mercer wanted us both dead. There's one more thing, Holland says. Mercer left town this morning, told his clerk he had business in Denver, took the morning train, won't be back for a week. He's running, Jack says. Or regrouping, Ainsworth counters. Mercer's too smart to run without a plan. If he's going to Denver, it's because he has resources there, people he trusts, maybe evidence he needs to destroy before we can find it. Mother's been quiet. Now she speaks. Thomas Mercer has a house in Denver on Capitol Hill. My father sold it to him in 1868 when he moved west. It's where Thomas keeps his private papers, documents he doesn't trust, to his Wyoming office. How do you know that? Because he told me, years ago, when he was trying to convince me to invest in one of his schemes, said he kept everything important in that house, safe from prying eyes. I look at Ainsworth. How fast can you get us to Denver? Private train car, 6 hours. But Cole, if we go to Denver, if we confront Mercer on his own territory, this stops being investigation and starts being war. Good, I'm tired of playing defense. Holland clears his throat. As sheriff, I should probably tell you that breaking into a judge's house to steal documents is illegal. Even if those documents prove he's a murderer, you probably should tell us that. Consider yourselves told. He puts his hat back on. I'll be staying here, protecting the ranch, making sure nobody takes advantage while you're gone, and if anyone asks, I have no idea where you went. Decent man, Holland. Father was right to trust him. We plan quickly. Ainsworth will arrange the train. Mother will stay at the ranch with Jack and the deputies. Nora and I will go to Denver with Ainsworth and 2 of his security men. No, Nora says. Not your security. If we're caught, I don't want Union Pacific implicated. It should just be us. That's suicide. Mercer will have people watching the house. Then we don't go through the front door. She's right. And I'm starting to understand why Daniel Hayes married her. She's got the kind of mind that sees angles nobody else notices. There's a service entrance, Mother says, in the back, through the garden. Father had a key. I might still have it. She disappears upstairs, comes back 5 minutes later with a small brass key on a tarnished chain. This should still work, unless Thomas changed the locks. He wouldn't, Ainsworth says. That house has historical value. Original locks from 1865. He was always proud of that. We pack light. Change of clothes, basic supplies. I bring Father's revolver. Nora brings a determination that could cut steel. The train leaves at noon. 6 hours to Denver. 6 hours to plan exactly how we're going to break into a judge's house and steal evidence that could bring down one of the most powerful men in Wyoming Territory. 6 hours to figure out if I can actually do this, if I can cross lines I've never crossed, become someone I've never been. The train car Ainsworth arranged is nicer than my entire house. Leather seats, polished wood panels, a small bar stocked with whiskey older than me. This is how the other half lives, the half that builds empires while people like my father break their backs keeping ranches alive. Nora sits by the window, watches Wyoming roll past, endless prairie and sky, and the kind of emptiness that makes you think about how small you are. I sit across from her. Ainsworth's in the forward compartment, giving us privacy. You don't have to do this, I tell her. You could stay at the ranch. Let me and Ainsworth handle Denver. And miss the chance to finally see proof that Daniel was right, that he died for something real and not just bad luck? No. I've waited 2 years for this. I'm not stopping now. Even if it gets you killed, especially if it gets me killed, at least then I'll know I tried. The train rocks gently, rhythmic, hypnotic. Outside, a herd of antelope runs parallel to the tracks, racing the iron horse like they think they can win. Tell me about him, I say. Daniel, not the investigation, not how he died, just who he was. Nora's quiet for a long time. When she speaks, her voice is soft, remembering. He was kind. That's the first thing anyone noticed. Daniel Hayes was kind in a world that didn't reward kindness. He'd stop to help strangers fix broken wagon wheels. He'd give his lunch to children who looked hungry. He believed people were fundamentally good and just needed chances to prove it. Like my father. Yes, like Samuel, she smiles. We met at a church social. I was new in town. Didn't know anyone. Daniel saw me standing alone and just walked over, started talking about the weather, the most boring conversation in history. But he made it interesting because he actually cared about what I thought. How long were you married? 3 years. We were trying for children. I miscarried twice. Daniel never blamed me, never made me feel less than. He just held me and said we had time, that we'd figure it out together. Tears tracked down her cheeks. She doesn't wipe them away. The night before he died, we had dinner. Nothing special. Stew and bread. He told me about the problems he'd found with the track. Said he was worried about filing the report because it might cost people their jobs. But he couldn't let trains run on defective rails, couldn't risk other people's lives for corporate profit. He sounds like someone I would have liked. You would have. Everyone did. That's why when he died, when all those people died, everyone wanted to believe it was just an accident. Because believing Daniel made a mistake was easier than believing someone killed him for being honest. She finally wipes her eyes, turns back to the window. I dream about him sometimes. In the dreams, he tells me to let it go, to move on, to live my life instead of chasing ghosts. But you can't. I can't. Because if I let it go, if I stop fighting, then he died for nothing. And those 16 other people died for nothing. And Mercer wins. And men like Daniel keep dying because it's easier to kill them than fix the problems they find. I understand that. Understand it better than she knows, because I'm realizing that's exactly what my father did. Kept this ranch running despite the debt, despite Mercer's traps, despite knowing he was probably going to lose it all eventually. He kept fighting because giving up meant admitting defeat, and Samuel Driscoll never admitted defeat, not even to death. Ainsworth comes back from the forward compartment, sits across from us. We'll arrive in Denver at 6, sunsets at 7. We should wait until full dark before approaching the house. Less chance of being seen. How do we know Mercer won't be there? Nora asks. I have people watching the train stations. If he comes back early, we'll know. And if he's already there? If he never actually left? Then we adjust. But I don't think he's there. Mercer's too confident. He thinks Crane succeeded. Thinks you're both dead. He won't know otherwise until he hears from his contacts in Wyoming. Which gives us how long? Maybe 24 hours, maybe less. Depends how good his information network is. The train speeds through Colorado, mountains rising in the distance. Denver's ahead, hidden in the haze where prairie meets peak. I think about what we're about to do. Breaking and entering. Theft. Crimes that could land us in prison even if we find evidence of Mercer's guilt, because judges protect their own. And we're about to attack one of the most powerful men in the territory. What if we don't find anything? I ask. Ainsworth looks at me. Then we've lost. And Mercer continues operating with impunity, and more people die. And you probably lose your ranch anyway, because I can't protect you from loans I didn't know existed. Comforting. I've never been good at comfort. Just facts. Nora stands, paces the length of the car, energy burning off, fear or excitement or both. There has to be something, she says. People like Mercer, they keep records, insurance, leverage. He won't have destroyed everything because he needs proof to control the people he's bought. She's right, I say. Mercer's been playing this game for decades. He'll have documentation of every bribe, every threat, every murder. Because that's how he stays in power, by making sure everyone's as guilty as he is. Ainsworth nods. So we find his insurance, and we use it against him. The train pulls into Denver Union Station as the sun touches the mountains. The city's bigger than I remember. More people, more noise, more everything. Progress, they call it. The future arriving, whether you want it or not. We take a cab to a hotel 3 blocks from Mercer's house. Check in under false names. Ainsworth's done this before, knows all the small tricks that keep you invisible in a city full of eyes. Our room overlooks a street lined with mansions, old money. The kind of wealth that built this country on the backs of people like my father, like Daniel Hayes, like everyone who ever believed hard work would be enough. We wait for darkness, order dinner to the room, don't talk much. Everyone lost in their own thoughts about what comes next. At 9 o'clock, we move. Mercer's house sits on the corner of Grant Street, 3 stories, red brick, iron fence, garden in back, overgrown with autumn weeds, exactly as Mother described. No lights in the windows, no movement, empty. Ainsworth's men confirmed it 2 hours ago. Mercer's not home. Won't be home. We have the night. We approach from the back, through the alley where merchants make deliveries and servants enter. The brass key Mother gave us fits the garden gate. Old hinges protest, but don't break. We're in. The garden's a mess. Nobody's tended it in years. Good. Means Mercer doesn't spend much time here. Means we're less likely to encounter staff. The back door's locked. Same key works, like Mother said. Original locks. Historical value. Inside, the house smells like dust and old money. Furniture covered in white sheets. Paintings on walls showing men in Union Army uniforms. Mercer's grandfather, probably. The one who made the family fortune during the war. Where would he keep private papers? Nora whispers. Study or bedroom? Ainsworth answers. Men like Mercer keep important things close. We split up. Ainsworth takes the ground floor. Nora and I head upstairs. The second floor has 4 bedrooms, all empty, all frozen in time like museums of lives no longer lived. We find the study at the end of the hall, doors locked, different lock, newer. I pull out the knife I brought. Work the blade into the mechanism. Father taught me this when I was 12. Said sometimes you need to get into places you're not invited. Never thought I'd use it for burglary. The lock gives. We're in. The study's different from the rest of the house. This room's lived in, used. Books on shelves actually read. Desk covered in papers. Ashtray full of cigar butts. Nora goes to the desk, starts searching drawers. I take the bookshelf. Sometimes people hide documents behind books. Boring hiding places are often the best because nobody expects them. Coal, Nora's voice is tight. Look at this. She's holding a ledger, large, leather-bound, pages filled with names and numbers and dates. I scan the entries. My blood goes cold. Frank Morrison, $1,500, August 1882. William Crane, $5,000, October 1884. Samuel Driscoll Estate, co-signed notes, due 1885, interest variable. On and on, dozens of names, hundreds of transactions, a complete record of every bribe, every payoff, every manipulation Mercer's executed over 30 years. This is it, I breathe. This is everything. Keep looking. There has to be more. I go back to the bookshelf. Pull books at random. Behind a set of law journals, I find a gap. Reach in, feel paper, pull out a folder, open it. Photographs, the ones Daniel took. Crystal clear images of cracked rails, defective welds, substandard materials, each photo dated and annotated in Daniel's handwriting. Alongside them, his original report, 12 pages detailing every problem he found, every safety violation, every shortcut taken, and stapled to the report a letter from Mercer to Frank Morrison. Disregard Hayes' assessment. Continue as planned. Standard compensation upon completion. Eliminate any resistance. Eliminate any resistance. Not ignore. Not suppress. Eliminate. Murder. Right there in black and white, signed by Judge Thomas Mercer. Nora's reading over my shoulder. She makes that sound again, that small broken sound of a world ending and beginning at the same time. "He killed them," she whispers. "He actually killed them, and we can prove it." We keep searching, find more. Bank records showing payments to Morrison. Statements from the mining company showing the silver deposits. Correspondence between Mercer and company executives discussing how to maximize profit from the disaster. It's all here, everything we need to destroy him. That's when we hear it. Downstairs, the front door opening, footsteps, multiple people, voices. We freeze. Nora looks at me with wide eyes. I motion for silence. Creep to the study door, look down the hallway toward the stairs. 3 men, one I recognize even from behind, Judge Thomas Mercer. The other 2 are strangers, large, armed, security. "Search the house," Mercer's saying. "Someone's been here, I can feel it." We're trapped. No way down without being seen. No way out except the window. I look at Nora. She's already thinking it, already moving toward the window, 2nd floor, 20-foot drop. But there's a trellis, overgrown with vines, might hold our weight, might. Footsteps on the stairs. They're coming up, no choice. I grab the ledger and the folder, stuff them in my coat, open the window as quietly as possible. "Go," I whisper to Nora. "I'll be right behind you." She climbs out, tests the trellis. It holds. She starts descending. I'm about to follow when the study door opens. Mercer stands there, looks at me, at the open window, at the papers clearly visible in my coat. For a moment nobody moves. 2 men recognizing that everything's about to change. Then he smiles. Cold, certain. "Hello, Cole. I wondered when you'd figure it out. Took you longer than I expected. You always were slower than your father." I don't answer, just swing my leg over the windowsill. "You think you can run?" Mercer asks. "Think you can take those papers and ruin me? Boy, I've been playing this game since before you were born. You don't stand a chance." "Maybe not, but I'm going to try." I drop onto the trellis. It groans, starts to pull away from the wall. I climb fast, not looking up, not thinking about the fall, hit the ground hard. Ankle protests, but holds. Nora's already running toward the garden gate. Gunshot, loud in the night air. The bullet hits the brick wall, 2 feet from my head. I run. Through the garden, through the gate, into the alley, behind us, shouting. More shots, but we're in darkness now, running through alleys we don't know toward a street we can barely see. Ainsworth appears from nowhere, grabs us both. "This way." Cars waiting. We pile into a motor car, newer model, fast. Ainsworth guns the engine and we're moving, tires screeching, Denver blurring past. "Did you get it?" he shouts over the engine noise. I pull the ledger and folder from my coat. "Everything. We got everything." Nora's laughing. Or crying, maybe both. He saw us. Mercer saw Cole. He knows we have the evidence. "Good," Ainsworth says grimly. "Let him know. Let him understand that his game's over. That 30 years of manipulation and murder are about to catch up." We drive to the train station. Ainsworth's private car is already prepared. Engine running, ready to leave. We board. The train starts moving before we've even sat down, racing through the night back toward Wyoming, back toward whatever comes next. I spread the documents on the table, ledger, photographs, reports, letters, everything we need to prove Mercer's guilt, everything we need to bring him down. Nora touches Daniel's photographs gently, like they're religious relics. Maybe they are. "We did it," she says. "We actually did it. We got the evidence. Now we have to make sure it matters." Ainsworth pours 3 glasses of whiskey, hands them out. "To Daniel Hayes and 16 others, may they finally get justice." We drink. The train speeds through darkness, taking us home, taking us toward confrontation, taking us toward the moment when everything we've fought for either triumphs or burns. I look at Nora across the table, at this woman who walked into my life 4 days ago and turned it upside down, who lied to me and used me and somehow became the most real thing in my carefully constructed world. "Whatever happens next," I tell her, "I want you to know something." "What?" "I'm glad you showed up at that church. Glad you gave me a reason to blow up my life. It needed blowing up anyway." She reaches across the table, takes my hand. "Cole Driscoll, are you getting sentimental on me?" Maybe. Don't tell anyone. Bad for my reputation. Your secret's safe with me, along with all my other secrets. Ainsworth clears his throat. I hate to interrupt this moment, but we need to plan. Mercer knows we have the evidence. He's going to move fast, pull strings, call in favors. Maybe try to have us killed before we can use what we found. So we move faster, I say. We get to Sheriff Holland first thing tomorrow, give him the evidence. Let him arrest Mercer. It won't be that simple. Mercer's a judge. He has immunity. Friends in high places. Holland can't just arrest him without support from the territorial governor. Then we go to the governor. The governor's in Mercer's pocket. Has been for years. That's how Mercer's stayed in power this long. Nora leans forward. What about the federal government? If this crosses state lines, if Union Pacific was involved, doesn't that make it federal jurisdiction? Ainsworth considers. Maybe. There's a federal prosecutor in Cheyenne, Marcus Webb, young, ambitious, not beholden to local politics. If we can get this evidence to him, if he agrees to prosecute, that bypasses Mercer's territorial protections. So we go to Webb and hope he's brave enough to take on a sitting judge with connections all the way to Washington. The train rolls on. We plan, argue, adjust. By the time dawn breaks over the Wyoming plains, we have a strategy. Get home. Secure the ranch. Contact Webb. Present the evidence. Force a federal investigation that Mercer can't stop. Simple. Except nothing about this has been simple. We pull into Cheyenne at 7 in the morning. Holland's waiting at the station. One look at his face tells me something's wrong. What happened? I ask. Mercer sent a telegram to the territorial marshal, claims you broke into his Denver home, stole property, assaulted him. There's a warrant for your arrest, Cole. You and Mrs. Driscoll both. Ainsworth swears. He moved faster than I thought. There's more, Holland continues. He's calling for an emergency session of the territorial court. Tomorrow. Wants you both arrested and held without bail pending trial. On what charges? Burglary, assault, conspiracy to defraud. He's throwing everything he can think of, and he's got 3 judges lined up to hear the case, all his friends. I look at the evidence we risked everything to get. Wonder if it matters when the system's designed to protect men like Mercer. We still have options, Ainsworth says. Webb can intervene, file federal charges that supersede the territorial warrant. Can he do that before tomorrow? If we give him reason to. If the evidence is strong enough. Holland takes the ledger, flips through it. His face goes hard. This is enough. More than enough. I'll take this to Webb myself right now. See if he'll move. He leaves, running, actually running through the station. A sheriff carrying evidence that could topple a judge. We wait. There's nothing else to do. Wait and hope that justice still means something. That truth still matters. Nora sits beside me on a bench, leans her head on my shoulder. I'm sorry, she says. For what? For getting you into this. For putting your life at risk. For everything. I put my arm around her. Stop apologizing. You gave me something to fight for. Something bigger than just keeping a ranch running. That's worth the risk. Is it? Even if we lose? Even if Mercer wins? Especially then, because at least we tried. At least we stood up. That matters. She lifts her head, looks at me with those gray eyes. Cole Driscoll, I think I might be falling in love with you. The words hit me like the bullet that missed us days ago. Unexpected, dangerous, real. That wasn't part of the contract. I know. Rules 1, 2, and 3, all broken. We're terrible at this. The worst. I kiss her. Right there in Cheyenne Station, in front of everyone. Don't care who sees, because Nora Hayes is right. I'm falling too. Have been since the moment she looked at me across that lawyer's office and agreed to a lie that's becoming the truest thing in my life. When we break apart, Ainsworth's watching with something like approval. About time you two figured that out, he says. Figured what out? That this stopped being fake about 3 days ago, maybe sooner. Hard to tell with you two. He's right, but admitting it out loud makes it real. Makes it something that can be lost, and I've lost enough. Holland returns 2 hours later. He's not running anymore, walking, steady, determined. Webb will see you. Now. He's read through everything. Says if even half of it's true, Mercer's looking at life in prison, federal life. And the territorial warrant? Webb's filing for an injunction, arguing that federal charges take precedence. He thinks he can get it approved by end of day. Thinks? It's the best we've got, Cole. Now come on, Webb's waiting. Federal prosecutor Marcus Webb is 32 years old, looks younger, sharp eyes, sharper mind. The kind of man who climbed from nothing to here on pure talent and refusal to quit. He listens to our story, all of it. Asks questions that show he's actually thinking, not just going through motions. When we finish, he sits back, steeples his fingers. This is the biggest case I've ever seen. Corporate murder, judicial corruption, conspiracy across state lines. If I prosecute this, if I go after Mercer, my career either launches or ends. No middle ground. So what are you going to do? Webb smiles. First time since we walked in. I'm going to end a corrupt judge's career, and I'm going to make sure 17 dead men finally get justice. He stands, extends his hand. Welcome to the right side of history, Mr. Driscoll, Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Ainsworth. This is going to be one hell of a fight. We shake, sealing an alliance that might save us or destroy us. Outside, the sun's setting. Another day ending. Another night coming. Nora takes my hand as we walk back to the waiting car. We're really doing this, she says. We really are. No going back now. No going back. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I believe we might actually win. The federal courthouse in Cheyenne fills before dawn. Every seat claimed. People standing in the aisles. Reporters from Denver, Omaha, even Chicago. Word spreads fast when a sitting territorial judge faces murder charges. I sit at the prosecution table beside Nora. Marcus Webb's on her other side, surrounded by stacks of evidence we pulled from Mercer's house. Behind us, Ainsworth and Mother. Jack refused to stay at the ranch, said he needed to see this through. Sheriff Holland's at the back, making sure order holds. Across the aisle, Judge Thomas Mercer sits with 3 of the most expensive lawyers money can buy. He's dressed immaculately, calm, confident, like this is just another day of manipulating the system he spent 30 years corrupting. He hasn't looked at me once, hasn't acknowledged that 4 days ago I was in his study, stealing the evidence that's about to bury him. That bothers me more than it should. His certainty, his complete lack of fear, like he knows something we don't. Like the evidence we risked our lives for doesn't matter because the game's rigged deeper than we can see. Federal Judge Catherine Morrison enters. Everyone stands. She's 60, appointed by President Cleveland himself, with a reputation for being harder than Wyoming granite and twice as unforgiving. If anyone can handle this case, it's her. Be seated, she says. Her voice carries without effort. We're here regarding United States versus Thomas Jonathan Mercer. Federal charges of conspiracy to commit murder, bribery of public officials, and obstruction of justice. Mr. Webb, you may proceed. Webb stands. He's prepared. I can see it in the way he moves, the way he's organized his materials. This is his moment, and he knows it. Your Honor, the prosecution will demonstrate that Judge Mercer, over a period of 30 years, engaged in a systematic pattern of corruption, bribery, and murder for personal financial gain. We will show that in August 1882, he conspired to cause an explosion on Union Pacific Railroad tracks that killed 17 men, including engineer Daniel Hayes. We will show that he paid bribes to cover up the crime, and we will show that when witnesses threatened to expose him, he ordered their deaths. Mercer's lead attorney, a snake named Thornton, rises. Objection. The prosecution is making wild accusations without foundation. Judge Mercer is a respected member of this community. His integrity is beyond question. His integrity, Webb says calmly, is precisely what's in question, and we have documentation to prove it. He presents the ledger. Walks Judge Morrison through every entry, Every bribe, every payoff, names and dates and amounts. 30 years of corruption laid bare. The courtroom is silent except for the rustle of pages, each entry another nail, another piece of a coffin being built in real time. Thornton tries to discredit it. This could be forged. Created by Mr. Driscoll and Mrs. Hayes to frame an innocent man. The ledger is written in Judge Mercer's own hand, Webb counters. We have handwriting experts ready to testify. We also have bank records corroborating every transaction listed. He presents those next. Stacks of statements from Mountain Trust Bank. Every payment to Frank Morrison, to William Crane, to dozens of others. All traceable back to accounts Mercer controlled. Judge Morrison reads through them. Her expression doesn't change, but I see her jaw tighten. She's seeing what we saw, the scope of it, the audacity. Proceed, Mr. Webb. Webb calls his first witness, Frank Morrison himself. The supervisor who ignored Daniel's safety report, the man who took $1,500 to let 17 people die. Morrison's old now, 70 if he's a day. Walks with a cane, sits in the witness chair like it might collapse under his guilt. His hands shake as he's sworn in. His voice barely carries when he states his name. Mr. Morrison, Webb begins gently. In August 1882, you were supervisor of track construction for Union Pacific's Colorado line. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And on August 13th of that year, did you receive a safety report from engineer Daniel Hayes? Morrison silent, eyes down. The silence stretches. Judge Morrison leans forward. Mr. Morrison, please answer the question. Finally, yes, I received it. What did that report say? Morrison's voice breaks. Said there were defects in the track, cracks in the rails, substandard welding. Daniel showed me photographs, measurements. Said it wasn't safe for trains. Said people would die if we didn't fix it immediately. And what did you do with that report? I filed it, like I was supposed to. Webb pulls out a document. This is the official file from Union Pacific. It shows no safety report filed by Daniel Hayes on August 13th. In fact, it shows no reports filed by Hayes at all in the month of August. So I'll ask again, Mr. Morrison, what did you do with Daniel Hayes's report? Morrison's shaking harder now. I destroyed it, burned it in my office stove, watched the photographs curl and blacken, watched Daniel's handwriting turn to ash. The courtroom erupts. Judge Morrison bangs her gavel. Order! Why did you destroy it? Webb presses. Because I was told to. By whom? Morrison looks at Mercer. First time he's made eye contact since taking the stand. Mercer's face remains impassive, calculating, like he's watching a chess game he's already won. By Judge Mercer, he sent a letter saying the report was wrong, that Hayes was being overly cautious, that the contractors knew what they were doing, that I should disregard his assessment and continue as planned, that there would be consequences if the project got delayed by unnecessary safety concerns. Consequences for whom? For me, for my job, for my family. Morrison wipes his eyes. I had 3 children. Wife was sick. We needed the money, needed the security. So I did what I was told. I destroyed the report, and 14 days later, 17 men died. And did Judge Mercer compensate you for following these instructions? Silence again. Longer this time. Mr. Morrison, I remind you that you've been granted immunity in exchange for truthful testimony. Did Judge Mercer pay you? $1,500. Deposited in my account the week after the explosion. Blood money. I've tried to give it back 100 times, tried to donate it. But no charity wants money that came from dead men, so it sits there, growing interest, getting heavier every year. Nora's hand finds mine under the table, squeezes hard. This is it. This is the moment her 2-year search leads to, validation, proof that Daniel died telling the truth. Webb presents Morrison's bank records, shows the deposit, shows the subsequent purchases Morrison made, a ranch in Montana paid in cash, early retirement for a man who'd never saved a dollar in his life. Mr. Morrison, after you destroyed Daniel Hayes's report, did you ever speak to him again? Once? the day before he died. He came to my office, asked if I'd filed his report. I lied, told him I had, told him the company was reviewing it. He looked relieved, said he was glad someone was finally taking safety seriously. Morrison's voice cracks completely now. That was the last thing I ever said to him, a lie. And the next morning he was dead, along with 16 others who trusted me to keep them safe. Thornton stands for cross-examination. He's smooth, practiced, the kind of lawyer who can make truth sound like lies and lies sound like gospel. Mr. Morrison, isn't it true that you've been promised a reduced sentence in exchange for testifying against Judge Mercer? Isn't it possible you're lying to save yourself from prosecution? I'm lying to damn myself, Morrison says quietly. 17 people died because I took that money, destroyed that report, put my family's comfort over other people's lives. I've lived with it every day since. Wake up at 3 in the morning, seeing their faces, hearing the explosion. So no, I'm not lying. I'm finally telling the truth, finally facing what I did. And whatever punishment comes, I deserve it. The words land like hammer blows. Even Thornton looks shaken. Webb calls more witnesses. Union Pacific employees who remember Daniel Hayes' warnings, who saw the photographs before Morrison destroyed them. Banking officials who verified every transaction in Mercer's ledger, handwriting experts who confirmed the entries were written by Mercer himself over decades. Each one adds another layer, another piece of proof. By lunch, the case feels overwhelming. Even Thornton looks worried, shuffling papers, whispering urgently to Mercer. But Mercer still hasn't reacted, still sits there calm and certain, like he knows something we don't, like he's holding cards we can't see. Court recesses. We file out into the hallway. Nora's crying. Not sad tears, release tears. The kind you cry when a weight you've carried for years finally lifts. It's working, she says. They believe us. They're finally seeing what Daniel saw. Morrison's testimony sealed it, Webb agrees. Jury would convict on that alone, but we're not taking chances. This afternoon we present the physical evidence, the photographs, the letters, everything. Ainsworth's less optimistic, pulls me aside while Nora talks to Mother. Don't celebrate yet. Mercer hasn't presented his defense. And a man that confident either has an ace in the hole or he's completely delusional. Given his track record, I'm betting on the ace. Let him play whatever card he's holding. We have the truth. Cole, the truth doesn't always win. You should know that by now. Power wins, money wins, connections win. Mercer's had 30 years to build all three. Don't underestimate him. Mother appears. She's been in the gallery watching. Her face is pale, tight. Something's wrong. Cole, I need to speak with you privately. Now. We find an empty conference room. Mother closes the door, locks it, pulls the curtains. What's wrong? She hands me a photograph. It was slipped under the courtroom door during testimony. No envelope, no note, just the image. It's our house. Someone's drawn red X's on every window, written a message across the bottom in blood-red ink. Drop the charges, or everyone burns. Mercer's threatening us. Not just threatening, promising. Mother's voice is steel. This is what he does, Cole. When legal avenues fail, he resorts to violence. He can't let this trial proceed. Can't let 17 murders be exposed. Can't let his empire crumble. So he'll burn everything down before he lets that happen. I show the photo to Webb when court reconvenes. His face goes pale, then hard. I'm requesting protective custody for the Driscoll family, federal marshals, armed escort, and I'm entering this as evidence of witness intimidation. Judge Morrison needs to see this. No, I say. We don't run, we don't hide, we finish this. Cole, he's threatening to kill your entire family. He's been trying to kill me for days. I'm still here. We all are. And we're staying until this is done. Webb doesn't look convinced, but he nods. Respects the choice, even if he disagrees with it. Your call. But I'm putting federal marshals at your ranch, armed, round the clock. Anyone comes near your family without authorization, they'll answer to federal law. Court resumes. The afternoon session begins with Thornton standing for the defense. Your Honor, the prosecution has presented compelling testimony. Testimony from a man granted immunity in exchange for implicating Judge Mercer. Testimony supported by documents that could easily be forgeries. Documents obtained through illegal means. Breaking and entering. Theft. The prosecution wants this court to believe that a respected judge, a pillar of this community, a man who served Wyoming Territory for 3 decades, is actually a murderer. But they offer no direct evidence, no eyewitnesses to any crime, just circumstantial connections and the word of a corrupt employee trying to save his own skin. He's good. I hate that he's good. Hate that he can take truth and twist it until it looks like manipulation. Furthermore, the prosecution has failed to establish motive. Why would Judge Mercer, a wealthy and powerful man, risk everything to kill railroad workers? What possible benefit could he gain? Webb stands. We can establish motive. Judge Mercer owned 40% of Rocky Mountain Mining Company, the same company that needed railroad access to silver deposits discovered in 1882, the same company that hired substandard contractors to cut costs. The same company that stood to lose millions if construction was delayed by safety concerns. Speculation, Thornton counters. Judge Mercer's investment was legitimate. He had no control over day-to-day operations, no knowledge of construction defects. To suggest he orchestrated mass murder for profit is absurd. Is it? Webb presents more documents. These are internal memos from Rocky Mountain Mining. They show Judge Mercer personally approved the hiring of the contractors Frank Morrison worked with. Contractors who submitted the lowest bids by promising to cut corners on materials and safety inspections. Judge Mercer knew exactly what he was buying. Thornton shifts tactics. The defense calls Theodore Ainsworth. Ainsworth stands, walks to the witness chair. He's been expecting this, prepared for it. Mr. Ainsworth, Thornton begins, you own Union Pacific Railroad, correct? I do. And you've been engaged in a bitter business rivalry with Judge Mercer for decades, have you not? We've had our disagreements. More than disagreements. According to public records, you accused Judge Mercer of corruption in 1880, called for his removal from the bench, told the territorial governor he was unfit for office, damaged his reputation significantly. Isn't that true? It is, because he was corrupt, is corrupt. This trial proves it. Or this trial is your final attempt to destroy a man who's consistently outmaneuvered you in business. Tell me, Mr. Ainsworth, when Judge Mercer's mining company secured railroad access before Union Pacific could negotiate favorable terms, how much money did your company lose? Objection, Webb says. Relevance? I'm establishing bias, Your Honor. Mr. Ainsworth has financial motivation to see Judge Mercer removed from power. Judge Morrison nods. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mr. Ainsworth. Union Pacific lost approximately $200,000 when Rocky Mountain Mining chose a competitor's railroad line. But that has nothing to do with why I'm here. I'm here because Judge Mercer is a murderer who's escaped justice for 30 years. Thornton smiles, cold, predatory. You're here because Mr. Driscoll broke into Judge Mercer's home and stole property. Property you then used to construct this prosecution. Property obtained illegally by a man you tried to trap in a fraudulent marriage contract. He presents the marriage contract, the one between me and Margaret Ainsworth, highlights clauses about water rights and land management. This contract, if fulfilled, would have given Union Pacific access to water sources that Judge Mercer's mining operations depend on. Isn't that true, Mr. Ainsworth? Access, yes. But the contract was designed to protect coal from Mercer's predatory loans, not to steal resources. That's your testimony. But isn't it convenient that this protection came with clauses that would have given you control of vital water rights? Isn't this entire prosecution just an elaborate scheme to eliminate your business rival? Webb objects again. Your Honor, Mr. Ainsworth isn't on trial here. Neither is Judge Mercer, Thornton counters, because there's no legitimate evidence, just stolen documents and testimony from people with axes to grind. Mr. Ainsworth wants revenge for business losses. Mr. Driscoll wants revenge for his father's debt. Mrs. Hayes wants revenge for her husband's death. They've constructed an elaborate conspiracy theory to justify their grievances. Judge Morrison considers. Mr. Thornton, I'll allow questioning about bias and motivation, but this court will decide what constitutes legitimate evidence. Proceed. Thornton presents more documents. Bank records showing Ainsworth's losses when Mercer's mining company succeeded. News articles about their business rivalry. Evidence of bad blood going back decades. All of this, Thornton says, gesturing to the prosecution's evidence, could be manufactured, forged, created by people with money and motivation to destroy Judge Mercer's reputation. And when you look at who's making these accusations, what do you see? Business rivals, debtors, a grieving widow consumed by conspiracy theories. Not one credible, unbiased witness. He's spinning it, making us look like vengeful liars instead of people seeking justice, and I can see it working, see doubt creeping into Judge Morrison's expression. Nora stands. That's not true. Judge Morrison looks at her. Mrs. Hayes, you'll have your chance to testify. I don't need to testify. I need to tell the truth. Her voice rings clear, strong. Daniel Hayes died because Judge Mercer ordered him killed. I spent 2 years proving it. Nobody manufactured anything. I found the evidence because I never stopped looking. Because 17 people deserved someone who wouldn't give up on them. Thornton rounds on her. You found evidence in a house you broke into. Evidence that conveniently supports your grief-driven need for someone to blame. Tell me, Mrs. Hayes, have you considered that your husband might have simply made a mistake? That the explosion was a tragic accident rather than murder? Daniel didn't make mistakes about railroad safety. That's why they killed him. They? You mean Judge Mercer specifically? Did you see him plant explosives? Did you witness him giving orders to murder your husband? No, but the evidence you stole, the evidence obtained through criminal acts. Evidence that could easily be fabricated by a woman desperate for revenge and a railroad tycoon desperate to eliminate competition. I stand. Can't stay silent anymore. This isn't about revenge or business. 4 days ago, Judge Mercer sent an assassin to kill me and Nora. We have proof. We have the telegram ordering it. We have the assassin's body. We have Sheriff Holland's investigation confirming everything. Do you? Thornton's smile widens. You have a dead man who can't defend himself. You have a telegram from an anonymous source. You have a sheriff who was appointed during Judge Mercer's tenure and might have his own reasons for cooperating with your accusations. What you don't have is proof. What you have is a conspiracy theory built on circumstantial evidence and personal grudges. The accusation stuns the courtroom. Thornton's suggesting everyone is lying, that there's a massive conspiracy involving dozens of people across multiple jurisdictions. It's absurd, but it's also creating doubt. Webb's on his feet. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. The defense is accusing everyone of conspiracy. If their theory is correct, it requires the coordination of witnesses, law enforcement, federal prosecutors, and multiple banks across state lines. That's not reasonable doubt. That's paranoid delusion designed to obscure the truth. Judge Morrison bangs her gavel. Mr. Thornton, unless you have actual evidence of conspiracy beyond speculation, move on. Thornton nods, satisfied he's planted enough doubt. No further questions. Court adjourns for the day. We file out in silence. The case that seemed certain this morning now feels shaky. Thornton planted doubt. Made it about revenge and business rather than justice. Made us look like liars with agendas instead of witnesses telling truth. Outside, reporters swarm. Questions shouted from all directions. Cameras flashing. I push through, keeping Nora close. She's shaking, from anger or fear or both. We make it to the car. Ainsworth drives, fast, getting us away before the crowd can overwhelm us completely. That was bad, Jack says from the back seat. Thornton made us look like vengeful conspirators. He made us look human, Webb corrects. People with motivations and pain and reasons to want Mercer destroyed. That's his job. But the evidence still stands. Morrison's testimony still stands. The photographs, the letters, the bank records. Tomorrow I put Nora on the stand. Let the jury hear Daniel's story from her, see her credibility, her pain, her determination. Thornton can spin all he wants. He can't change what actually happened. Can't he? Nora's voice is small, defeated. He just spent 3 hours making me sound like a delusional widow who fabricated evidence to justify conspiracy theories. What if the jury believes him? Then we fight harder tomorrow, I say. Take her hand. We tell Daniel's story. We show them the truth. And we trust that justice still means something. She doesn't look convinced. We drive back to the ranch in silence. The deputies Webb assigned are there. 6 of them now, armed with Winchesters. They've reinforced the perimeter, set up watch rotations. Nobody's getting through without going through federal law enforcement first. Inside, Mother has dinner waiting. Beef stew again. Comfort food. Nobody's hungry, but we eat anyway. Going through motions because that's what you do when your world's crumbling and you need something normal to hold on to. After dinner, I find myself in Father's study, drawn there without thinking. This room still smells like him, still holds his presence like a ghost that won't leave. I open his desk drawers, looking for what? I don't know. Answers, maybe. Absolution. Some sign that he knew what I'm going through, that he'd understand the choices I've made. Instead, I find his journals. Leather-bound books chronicling 30 years of ranch life, weather patterns, cattle births, mundane details of a life lived close to the land. I flip through them, find 1882, start reading. Most entries are routine, but then I reach September, 1 month after the explosion that killed Daniel Hayes. The handwriting changes, not Father's usual steady script. This is shaking, erratic, the writing of a man falling apart. September 15th, 1882. Thomas came today, showed me Morrison's report. The original one, the one Daniel Hayes filed before Morrison destroyed it. Thomas had kept a copy, insurance he called it, leverage to make sure Morrison stayed quiet. 17 men dead because I trusted the wrong man. Thomas showed me the photographs, the cracks in the rails, the defective welds, the corners we cut to finish on schedule, everything Daniel Hayes warned about, everything Morrison ignored on Thomas's orders. I asked Thomas why he kept the evidence if he'd ordered it destroyed. He smiled. Said smart men always keep insurance. Said if Morrison ever turned on him, he'd need proof that Morrison acted alone, that the supervisor made the decision to ignore safety concerns without consulting investors. I realized then what I'd gotten involved with. Not a business partnership, a conspiracy. And Thomas had documentation proving everyone's guilt except his own. I've withdrawn my investment. Told Thomas I want nothing more to do with him or his schemes. Returned every penny I earned from that mine. It won't bring those 17 men back. Won't wash the blood from my hands. But staying in makes me complicit going forward. I choose poverty over more death. Thomas smiled when I told him. Said withdrawing won't change what happened, won't absolve me. Said the debt is permanent, the guilt eternal. Said I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I helped kill 17 men. He's right. But I can make sure it doesn't happen again. I can refuse to profit further. I can carry this weight until it kills me. Eleanor doesn't understand yet. Doesn't know why I'm selling assets to return blood money. She'll understand when the bills come due, when the ranch starts failing, when Mercer calls in the loans I took against mining profits. This is my penance, financial ruin. Carrying guilt until it crushes me. It's not enough. Nothing would be enough, but it's all I have. I read the entry 3 times, 4, until the words blur together. Father knew, not before, but after. And he'd destroyed himself trying to make it right. Spent the last years of his life in self-imposed poverty, refusing to profit from murder, carrying guilt that literally killed him, the heart attack that took him. Was it just age, or was it the weight of 17 deaths finally crushing him completely? I show the journal to Mother, to Nora, to Webb when he comes back that evening to prepare for tomorrow. Webb reads it carefully. This changes everything. This proves Samuel wasn't complicit in the murders. He was another victim of Mercer's manipulation. A good man who made a business decision without knowing it was built on lies. And when he found out, he tried to make it right. Will it help in court? It might. Shows Mercer's pattern. Shows he manipulated investors, kept evidence for leverage. Proves he's been orchestrating this conspiracy for decades, but I'm not thinking about court anymore. I'm thinking about Father. About the man who carried 17 deaths in silence rather than make excuses, who chose poverty over blood money, who died trying to atone for sins he didn't knowingly commit. He should have told me, I say, should have explained. Let me help carry it. Mother touches my shoulder. He was trying to protect you from the guilt, from Mercer, from everything that destroyed him. Samuel thought if he bore it alone, you could live free of it. Instead, I walked right into Mercer's trap anyway. The engagement to Margaret, the loans, all of it. Because Mercer was always 3 steps ahead, always planning. Your father tried to protect you, and Mercer used that protection as a weapon, turned Samuel's nobility into Cole's prison. Nora's reading the journal now, tears streaming down her face. Daniel would have liked your father. They thought the same way, that doing the right thing matters even when it costs everything, especially when it costs everything. We sit in that study for hours, reading Father's journals, learning about the man he was, the choices he made, the weight he carried. And I understand something I didn't before. This trial isn't just about justice for 17 dead men. It's about finishing what Father started, about making sure his penance meant something, about proving that choosing right over easy, poverty over profit, truth over comfort actually matters, even when it kills you, especially then. Morning comes too fast. Court reconvenes at 9. Final day of testimony before closing arguments. Webb calls Nora to the stand first thing. She walks to the witness chair with her head high, steady, strong. Everything Thornton tried to paint her as yesterday. Grief-stricken widow, conspiracy theorist, unreliable narrator of her own tragedy. But when she sits down, when she looks at the gallery, I see Daniel's widow, the woman who spent 2 years refusing to let his death be meaningless. Mrs. Hayes, Webb begins gently, tell us about Daniel. And she does, all of it, how they met, how he proposed on a bridge overlooking the Colorado River, how he believed in doing things right even when right was harder, how he loved his job because it meant keeping people safe. She talks about the night he found the defects, how he came home excited, not scared, excited that he'd caught the problems before anyone got hurt, how he'd taken photographs, written a detailed report, planned to file it first thing in the morning. He kept saying, "I saved lives today," Nora says, her voice breaking. He was so proud, so certain that doing the right thing would be rewarded, that the railroad would thank him for catching defects before disaster struck. And what happened the next morning? The explosion at dawn, right where Daniel had found the defects. 17 men dead, including Daniel. He'd gone back early to place warning flags, to make absolutely sure no trains used that section until repairs were made. He died trying to save the people who'd killed him. The courtroom is silent. Absolutely silent. You could hear tears falling. Webb presents Daniel's photographs, one by one, explains what each shows: cracks in rails, defective welds, substandard materials, evidence that 17 men died not by accident but by negligence, by greed, by the calculated decision that profit mattered more than lives. Mrs. Hayes, why did you spend 2 years investigating your husband's death? Because everyone told me to move on, to accept that accidents happen, that Daniel made a mistake in his assessment, that I was imagining conspiracy where only tragedy existed. Nora looks directly at Mercer. But I knew my husband, knew his work, knew he didn't make mistakes about railroad safety, so I investigated. And I found proof that Daniel was murdered for being honest, that 17 families lost fathers, sons, brothers because Judge Mercer valued money over lives. Thornton stands for cross-examination. He's still smooth, still practiced, but there's less confidence now, like he knows Nora's testimony landed harder than he expected. Mrs. Hayes, you've admitted to breaking into Judge Mercer's home, to stealing property, to lying about your marriage to Mr. Driscoll. Why should this court believe anything you say? Because I'm the only one who wouldn't give up, Nora answers. Yes, I broke laws, yes, I lied, but I lied to find truth. Judge Mercer lied to hide murders. There's a difference. Is there? Both involve deception. Both involve breaking rules to achieve goals. One goal was justice. The other was profit from 17 corpses. If you can't see the difference, that's not my failure. It's yours. The response shocks Thornton, shocks everyone. Nora Hayes, quiet widow, just called out one of Wyoming's most feared attorneys. Thornton recovers quickly. Your husband's death was tragic, but tragedy doesn't prove murder. Can you definitively say Judge Mercer personally ordered the explosion? I can say Judge Mercer ordered Daniel's report destroyed. I can say he paid Frank Morrison to ignore safety defects. I can say he profited when those defects caused an explosion. Whether he personally lit the fuse or just created conditions that made explosion inevitable, he's responsible, legally and morally. That's your opinion? That's the evidence. Thornton has no response to that. Sits down, looking rattled for the first time since trial began. Webb rests the prosecution's case. Judge Morrison calls lunch recess. We file out. Nora collapses in the hallway. Not from weakness, from release. She gave everything on that stand, laid bare her pain and determination for a room full of strangers, and she didn't break. You were amazing, I tell her. I was terrified. Didn't show. Good. That's what Daniel would have wanted. Strength, truth, no backing down. We eat lunch in silence. Webb reviewing notes for closing arguments, Mother praying quietly, Jack pacing, Ainsworth staring at nothing, all of us carrying different weights, different fears, different hopes for what verdict will bring. Court resumes. Thornton presents his closing argument. He's good, makes it about doubt, about stolen evidence and biased witnesses, about how prosecution built a circumstantial case on shaky foundation, how grief and revenge motivated accusations more than truth. He makes Mercer sound like victim. Successful man targeted by failures who blame him for their own mistakes. He makes us sound like conspiracy theorists who constructed elaborate fiction to avoid accepting tragic reality. By the time he finishes, I'm second-guessing everything, wondering if we really have enough, if justice will actually prevail, or if power and money will win like they always do. Then Webb stands for prosecution's closing. He doesn't yell. Doesn't theatrics, just lays out facts. 30 years of corruption documented in Mercer's own hand. Frank Morrison's testimony, bank records, photographs, letters, father's journal, a pattern so clear that denying it requires willful blindness. Judge Mercer wants you to believe this is about business rivalry, Webb says, about grief-stricken widows and vengeful debtors. But strip away the noise and what remains? 17 dead men. Evidence showing they died because corners were cut for profit, and Judge Thomas Mercer at the center of every decision that led to their deaths. He holds up Daniel's photographs. Daniel Hayes saw these defects, documented them, filed a report. That report was destroyed on Judge Mercer's orders. 2 weeks later, Daniel Hayes was dead, along with 16 others. That's not coincidence. That's conspiracy. That's murder. And all the doubt and deflection in the world can't change what actually happened. Webb sits down. Judge Morrison looks at both legal teams, at the evidence stacked on tables, at the gallery full of people waiting for justice or vindication or closure. I'll take this case under advisement, she says. Given the severity of charges and complexity of evidence, I'll issue my ruling tomorrow morning at 9. Court is adjourned. We file out. The waiting begins. That night, I can't sleep. Keep thinking about Father's journal, about 17 dead men, about Nora's determination, about how close we came to giving up a dozen times. Nora finds me on the porch, same place we've ended up every night, looking at stars that don't care about human justice. What if we lose? She asks. Then we lose knowing we tried everything, knowing we didn't give up, knowing 17 men finally had someone fight for them. That's not enough. No, but it's something. She leans against me. I'm scared. Me too. We stand there until dawn, watching night become day, watching the world continue despite everything, constant, indifferent, beautiful. Morning arrives, we return to court. The gallery's even more packed than before. Everyone wants to hear the verdict. See if justice still means something in a world built on corruption. Judge Morrison enters, everyone stands. She sits, we sit. The silence is absolute. I've reviewed all evidence presented in United States versus Thomas Jonathan Mercer. I've considered testimony from prosecution and defense. I've examined documents, photographs, bank records, and witness statements. And I've reached a decision. My heart hammers so hard I'm sure everyone can hear it. The evidence shows Judge Mercer engaged in a pattern of bribery and corruption spanning 3 decades, that he paid Frank Morrison to destroy Daniel Hayes' safety report, that he manipulated investors like Samuel Driscoll, that he profited from a disaster he helped create. Thornton's face goes pale. Mercer's mask finally cracks, just slightly, just enough to show the man beneath the confidence. However, Judge Morrison continues, and my stomach drops at that word, the prosecution has not proven beyond reasonable doubt that Judge Mercer directly ordered the explosion itself. The deaths could have resulted from negligence rather than malice, from Morrison's individual corruption rather than coordinated conspiracy. No, this can't be happening. Therefore, I find Judge Mercer not guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. Nora makes a sound, that broken sound of hope dying, of 2 years wasted, of justice denied. But, Judge Morrison says firmly, I do find Judge Mercer guilty of bribery, obstruction of justice, corruption of public officials, and conspiracy to defraud. These are federal crimes carrying significant penalties. I'm removing Judge Thomas Mercer from the bench effective immediately. I'm sentencing him to 10 years in federal prison, and I'm referring this case to territorial authorities for further investigation into additional charges. It's not enough, not nearly enough for 17 deaths, but it's something. Mercer's power is broken, his corruption exposed, his career destroyed. Mercer stands. For the first time since trial began, he looks at me. Really looks at me. And I see something in his eyes I didn't expect. Fear. This isn't over, he says quietly. Only I'm close enough to hear. You think you've won, but I've spent 30 years building insurance, protection, evidence against everyone who ever crossed me, including your father, including you. If I go down, I'm taking everyone with me. Federal marshals lead him away, still threatening, still fighting, unable to accept that he's finally lost. But he has lost. Maybe not completely, maybe not enough, but he's lost. Court adjourns. Reporters swarm. We push through to the car, drive back to the ranch in exhausted silence. That night, Webb comes by with news. Frank Morrison died, he says. Heart attack. 2 hours after verdict was announced. But before he died, he gave a statement to federal authorities. Full confession. Names everyone involved in the 1882 conspiracy, including explicit confirmation that Mercer ordered the explosion to silence Daniel Hayes. Why didn't he say this in court? Because he was terrified, needed to see Mercer actually convicted before he felt safe confessing everything. His statement includes details about how the explosion was set, who placed the charges, how much Mercer paid them. Everything we needed for murder charges. My hands shake. Can we retry Mercer? Already filed motions. Morrison's deathbed confession is admissible. Combined with the evidence we already have, we can charge Mercer with 17 counts of first-degree murder. Federal prosecutor in Denver is taking the case. No more territorial courts. No more judges who might be in Mercer's pocket. This goes straight to federal trial. When? 3 months, maybe less. But Cole, this time we'll win. This time he goes to prison for life. No possibility of parole. Justice for Daniel, for the others, for everyone Mercer destroyed. 3 months later, the trial happens exactly as Webb promised. Federal court, unbiased judge, evidence that's airtight. Morrison's confession played for the jury in his own shaking voice. Detailed, Damning. Undeniable. Guilty. All counts. 17 counts of first-degree murder. Conspiracy. Corruption. Everything. Thomas Jonathan Mercer. Sentenced to life in federal prison. No parole. No appeals. Justice delayed, but not denied. Nora and I attend the sentencing. Watch Mercer in chains. Watch him being led away to spend the rest of his life in a cell. He doesn't threaten this time. Doesn't promise revenge. Just looks at us with dead eyes. A man who built an empire on blood and watched it collapse in a courtroom. After, we stand outside the courthouse, winter sun setting over Denver, cold and clean and beautiful. It's over, Nora says. It's over. So what happens now? To us? We don't need to stay married anymore. The contract's fulfilled. The threats eliminated. I take her hands. Nora Hayes, I've been thinking about that, and I realized something. I don't want a contract, don't want an arrangement, don't want a marriage based on survival and necessity. What do you want? I want you. Real. Permanent. Forever. I want to marry you again. For real this time. No lies, no performance. No business transaction. Just two people choosing each other because we can't imagine not choosing each other. She's crying, smiling through tears. Cole Driscoll, are you proposing? I'm begging. There's a difference. Yes, the answer's yes. To all of it. Forever. No contracts, just us. We kiss right there on the courthouse steps, in front of everyone. Don't care who sees. Because this is real. This is true. This is what we fought for. 6 months later, we marry again. Real ceremony this time. In the canyon on our land. Real vows spoken in front of everyone who matters. Mother crying in the front row, Jack grinning. Ainsworth standing as witness. Sheriff Holland keeping order. The whole territory comes, not because they love us, but because our story became legend. The cowboy and the widow who took down a corrupt judge, who fought an empire and won. The ranch survives, but smaller. I sold 40% of the land to pay debts Ainsworth couldn't cover. Sold water rights to a conservation trust that ensures they'll never be exploited. We'll never be rich, never be powerful. But we're free. Mother moved to town after the trial. Said the ranch held too many ghosts. She visits monthly. Brings flowers for Father's grave. We don't talk about what he knew or didn't know. Some wounds don't heal. They just scar over. Jack runs day-to-day operations now. Turns out I'm better at paperwork than cowboying. Losing half our land means we need to be smarter about the half we kept. Nora opened a memorial on our property. Park with 17 trees, one for each person who died. Each tree planted with soil from the explosion site, each marked with a name, Daniel Hayes, and 16 others, finally remembered, finally honored. Sometimes I stand in that park and think about Father, about how his mistake led here, how his guilt drove him to bankruptcy, how his death forced me into a fake marriage that became the realest thing in my life. Everything connects, every choice rippling forward, every lie eventually meeting truth. Nora finds me there one evening, 8 months pregnant, our daughter growing inside her. Hope. That's what we're naming her. Hope Driscoll. Because that's what this is. What they died for. What we fought for. The hope that tomorrow can be better than today. That truth eventually wins. That love is stronger than corruption. What are you thinking about? She asks. Everything. Nothing. How we got here. Through fire. Through fire, I agree. But we made it. We made it. She takes my hand, places it on her belly. I feel movement, our daughter, swimming in darkness, waiting to be born into a world her parents fought to make just slightly better. We stand there as stars come out, same stars that witnessed everything, that watched Father die, that watched Daniel die, that watched us lie and fight and love our way to this moment. Constant, indifferent, beautiful. And underneath them, we're small, insignificant, two people in an endless prairie. But we're here, we're alive, we're free, and that's enough. That's everything. The end.